Hello, everybody. So I'm happy to share with you our results or our research project. It's a project on European, it was a European project that finished last year. And it was the project in the context of European Water Framework Directive, which joined 9 research partners from 3 countries in the southwest of Europe, France, Spain, and Portugal, and more than 40 associated partners from, for example, all the water agencies and some companies who are involved in water management. Okay, so the aim, so that's why there is many people here. So the aim of this project, there was 3 aims. The first one is to help for the water resources planification throughout the southwest of Europe by integrating economy, society, governance, and environment. The second aim was to promote a shared vision of the water resources in situations of scarcity today and in the future. And the third one was to develop a methodology for the environmental and economic evaluation of ecosystem services linked to water resources. Today, I chose to only talk about the second point. If you want more explanation on the ecosystem services, for example, we have the link at the end of the presentation. You can go ahead the link and you can see what we did about this, okay? So here on the left, you can see that the territory we concern is the southwest of Europe, integrating the southwest of France and whole Spain and whole Portugal, okay? So during all the period of the project, we did 3 meetings with all the partners of the water agency and the companies involved in the water management to work with them and to define the indicators that was relevant for water resource planifications. And we define different indicators in the 2 topics and the 3 topics: socioeconomic one, environment, and governance. Governance, it's what is the social aspect and how is the governance of water resource in the different regions. Then we define altogether scenarios to be evaluated based on these different indicators. The idea is to evaluate these indicators in the actual state and then to simulate trajectories of future scenarios under climate change made on different strategy. Okay, so we define altogether 4 scenarios. The first one is we take only the trend based on climate and population growth on movement. Okay, this is a scenario E1, that is the scenario trend scenario. Then we have a second scenario based on adaptation to climate change. Adaptation to climate change is that the government want to invest, put money in improvements of the supply network and improve the irrigation system in order to adapt under the climate change. And scenario E3 is, the aim is having agricultural sustainability. So all agriculture demands reach a sustainability level of 75%. This is the aim of this scenario. And the last one, that is the black one, is that the situation in the future would be in which agricultural demand is prioritized over ecological flow. That is, you favorize the socio-economic development. So this scenario was defined with the partners, end users, and then we begin to adapt the modeling in order to integrate all these indicators, to evaluate these indicators, and then to simulate these indicators in the future. Okay, so for this, we use the first methodology for scenario implementation. We use the 2 models. The first one is the SWOT model that maybe all of you knows about, is hydrological model, agroecological model. that work at the scale of the watershed. And then we couple this model with AGUAMOD model, that is a model made by our colleagues in Spain. And this model can manage the water distributions depending on the demand, of the urban demand, agricultural demand, industry demand. Okay, so it can distribute all these aspects. So you can couple natural flow with anthropogenic management of the water, coupling these two models. Okay. Then, made on this, we calculate economic evaluation on the indicators we define altogether. And then we choose the 3 indicators to be plotted in the future: sustainability of urban and agricultural demands, hydrological alteration of the system of the rivers, and economical indicators. And then we did maps and diagrams, and then we discuss all together all the results. So concerning the environmental indicators, we choose 4 indicators based on water sustainability, first for urban supply, then for ecological discharge, and then for agriculture supply, and at the end for environmental services. And this sustainability is calculated like you can see in the slide here, based on viability, resilience, and vulnerability. And we have a little bit a graphic figure on the right in order to understand what is the different way to calculate these indicators. And we did this for each one, for each environmental indicator. Okay. Oh, it's vanished. I apologize. Umbral default is the limit of the indicator of the demand. For example, for urban supplies, is the demand you need for one city or one system. Okay. Then when here we have an illustration of all the application of the SWOT model at monthly scale for hydrology. First, at the scale of each subbasin in the southwest of Europe. Then first we calibrated during 5 years, 2000-2010, and then validated 5 years later. And then you can see that we have a good fit of the different watershed at the scale of all the territory. The most difficult to be modelized is the Rukar on the right. Here you can see, because it's highly anthropogenic. So that's why it's very important to couple with AGUATool in order to improve this variability. That's why we choose to do that. We work at the same time not only in quantity, but also on the quality. So here you can see that we modelize the nitrate concentration and fluxes at the scale of each watershed, because we need as a quality to work on the ecosystem services, and mainly the services of regulation of water quality. Okay. So then what we did, we aggregated this information based on the modeling at the scale of the reach, that is to say the water bodies, then at the exploitation systems, that is to say where the management, the little sub-basin management are more efficient, and then at the scale of the management system that is fitting with the governance of the water resource at the scale of the territories. So you can see that you have a degradation information here that plots at the end 4 groups that are more or less in the same behavior. Then what we can do is different plots here in order to see what is the dynamic of these indicators. And you can see that the last one, the water sustainability for environmental services, is the indicator that is the less positive for the most part of the territory when you are in the south, because of the problem of water resources is decreasing during climate change. Once we have the environmental indicator, we switch on socioeconomical indicators. So we decided to have 4 economical indicators linked to water resources. And this indicator is calculated for each ecoregion of each country of the Sudway territory, and is later adapted to the scale of the geographic demarcation, that is the governance management scale. The first two indicators measure water productivity in the primary sector, which includes agriculture, livestock, and forestry, and the second and tertiary sectors, which include industry, construction, and services. And the other two indicators are defined as the volume of water used per full-time equivalent employee in the primary sector, and the volume of water used per full-time equivalent employee in the secondary and tertiary sector. So we evaluate all of these indicators, and you will see later what we will do with this indicator. The last one is the governance indicators, based on different tools and based on the cycle of planification of 2009-2015. So we have different indicators that was analyzed based on the plans and the questionnaire done with different end users. Okay, so you have participation of the planification, participation related to the consultation step, and tools of governance, and also transparencies in the governance. So you can see that you have different governance methodology depending on each big watershed. Here, when you combine all the indicators here in this plan, you can see that you have 4 groups, and the groups that is more or less in the north and in the west that are not impacted very important by climate change. And then when you go, you have a group in the center of Spain, and then we have patch group in the border of the Mediterranean Sea in the south and in the west, southwest. And these groups are different behavior, mainly based on governance and the lack of water resources at the end.
Sabine, excuse me, if you could wrap up in 3 minutes, please.
Okay, it's possible. So here you have the trends of hydrological changes. You can see that in the future, you will have a high stress in the south of Spain, mainly. Here you can see the difference of the trends. And here you have the results of the trajectory of the E1. You can see the impact is both geographically and across indices. And there is no direct relationship between the decrease in resources and impact on sustainability. So at the end, what we did, because it's very difficult to put in evidence, we put in evidence different indexes. So once indices at the right is the alteration of the water bodies at the subsystem scale. And then we have the different other indexes that we can talk later if you have questions. So you can see that we have a spatially effect and difference, which is very important to take into account. And here what we did is a representation of the 3 components: economic components, environmental components, and alteration of the systems. And each cycle represents one watershed. And the most of the cycle is great. The best are the indicators. The more is smaller, the worse are the indicators. And if the cycle is in the center, that is to say that you have the good weight for each component. Okay. So you can see that in the future, there is no more changing in the future, because the conclusion is that the scenario is not very different than the trends. Finally, we have not breaking scenarios. And what we can see, if you can see here, it's impossible to see difference. If we focus on one watershed, for example, you can see that you have more difference at the scale of one watershed itself. For example, at the left, you have Ebro, no difference, more or less, between scenarios. But on the right, you have Segura watershed that is very anthropized. And you can see different effect of the scenario, even if the cycle are little. So as a conclusion, we analyze the sustainability of water resource at the Southwest scale. Our methodology is where to evaluate in an economic way water resources at this scale. And we have also one analysis of the governance based on hydrological plans. And we develop a new methodology for working with stakeholders and involve them in the process of research. So if you want more details, you can go to the link here below, and you will have all the results, all the explanation of the indicators and the methods. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sabine. Thank you very much. It's clearly a large package of work with many components, and you've really just touched upon some facets of it.
Yes, that's why.
Thank you. Yes. Appreciate the link to additional resources. So I'm going to do two things now. I am going to invite people to ask any questions that they would like to ask of Sabine. And at the same time, I'm going to hand back to Sue Cuddy to give us some updates about the other presentations that that may remain, and just overall notes about managing the session. So questions for Sabine, and at the same time, I'm handing back to you, Sue.
Thank you, Tira. Hey, Sabine. Look, just before we take some questions, we are a little over time. People have another 40-minute break now. And the next scheduled presentation is at 1 o'clock Brussels time. Now that presenter is not attending the conference, so we that actually makes it a long. Oh, it's a 20-minute slot, I think, isn't it? The next one, whatever. So I've got a suggestion for what we might do in the time slot, because I don't think it's appropriate to bring the next two papers forward. In fact, that's not the right protocol, because not everybody will know that, and people might be jumping between sessions to pick up talks. As you all know, we did put some time aside for just a discussion. I know they're difficult to hold in this sort of medium, but I would like us to all come back and use that just as an open discussion session. So that would be the between 1 p.m. and 1:20 for a discussion session, and then we'll go into the two papers by Jack and John.